The war in Ukraine could be ending soon because of something Russia's doing. Yeah, I'll give you the details here on that. And also, Russia's at the G20 conference, 20 the top world countries here right now. And Russia was just laughed at on stage as Sergei Lavrov, Russia's top diplomat and basically one of Putin's top right hand man. The crowd erupted in laughter as Russia's top diplomat claimed that Ukraine's war was launched against Russia. Take a listen to this.
You know, the war which we are trying to stop and which was launched against us using Ukrainian people, of course, it influenced the policy of Russia, including energy policy.
Yeah, so this guy, first of all, says the war which Ukraine launched against us, they're in year 2, and they sent 150,000 troops to the border of Ukraine and invaded Ukraine. And now it's year number 2, and they're sending 300,000 to 500,000 new troops into Ukraine. And they're saying the war which we want to stop. We want to stop the war, Russia says, as they're sending 300,000 to 500,000 new troops into Ukraine. Now, just think about that. If they wanted to end the war, wouldn't they just not send 300,000 to 500,000 new troops into Ukraine and not keep invading Ukraine? If they wanted to end the war, wouldn't they just let their soldiers go home? And remember, they just drafted most of these men. Most of these men weren't even in the military. They drafted them against their will. When you do a draft, these are people that didn't sign up. Yeah, so think about that. In fact, take a look at this video I just seen, which is unbelievable. Take a look at this.
The brutal Wagner Group is purportedly turning to students from Moscow in order to fill its ranks. Now, we understand that the students in question here are in 10th grade. And I want to emphasize the significance of the fact that these boys are in Moscow, which is the region that has sent the least fighters to the front line, the region that has been kept the most isolated from the effects of the war, where more elite live. This is the video of what's believed to be a Wagner fighter. His face is covered, he's in a classroom, and he is lecturing students on so-called contract service. Now, the students were forced to fill out, we understand, this survey, showing it to you on the screen. It asks for their personal information, also the contact information of their parents. It also asks, do you have any relatives who are living in hostile countries? And what is your level of physical fitness? Do you possess any basic military skills? And those are elaborated as tactical first aid or shooting. And I want to mention CNN can't independently verify the claims, but this push for more recruits for the Wagner Group, not even the Russian formal military, comes as Putin is continuing to crack down on dissent.
Yeah, so you can see what Russia is doing to recruit people into their army and how desperate it seems like they're getting here. Yeah, and remember that they call a draft every year into Russia, and remember when they draft people, it's against their will. When you're drafted into an army, you don't have a choice. Yeah, so imagine if you were going into this invasion, this war, and you didn't even have a choice to join this army. You can see here a top Ukrainian intelligence official says that Russia will run out of military tools by this spring. They're predicting that Russia will run out of military tools necessary for its war in Ukraine by the end of this spring. Quote, Russia has wasted huge amount of human resources, armaments, and materials, says Major General Kylero Budanov told USA Today in an interview published on Thursday. Quote, its economy and production are not able to cover these losses. It's changed its military chain of command multiple times. If Russia's military fails in its aims this spring, it will be out of military tools, saying Russia is losing hundreds of soldiers a day during some of the heaviest fighting in Bakhmut, although Ukrainian officials have recently indicated that they may withdraw from that city. Even so, it's one city that's war-torn. It's not even that much for Russia to take back this one city. And this is why it's such a big deal for the world, the US, Ukraine, and everybody to make sure that China doesn't start supplying Russia with military aid and military supplies, missiles, and all this stuff, right? Because if China starts supplying with Russia with everything they need, except for, people, um, that could help Russia out significantly. Yeah, so this is a big thing because Russia could be running out of almost everything here shortly. So, will this be Russia's last push, their last big push? Maybe. Remember that Ukrainian President Zelensky said that he says that the end of the war could be Putin being offed by his own men. The question here is that would Russia put a new president in that's just as bad as Putin? Because remember, the previous president there is just as bad as Putin, and he's the yeah. So Dmitry Medvedev, who is this guy right here, he was the former president in between Putin's terms. This guy talks just like Putin, just like Putin. He backs up everything Putin says. So if Putin was off and they just made this guy president and they remain the status quo, well, not much would change then, right? But if Putin was offed and they said, okay, we've had enough, we can't sustain this anymore. And don't forget that basically all of the Western corporations like McDonald's and Nike and Visa and MasterCard and Google and like all these Western companies that every company you can think of is pulled out of Russia. Okay, so they've basically economically gone back 50 years. Nobody's buying their oil except for like China and a few countries like that. So they're losing billions and billions of dollars pretty much every single day because no company wants to do business over there. And even if they ended the war and said, okay, my bad, we're sorry, it'll probably take years for companies to go back over there and regain the trust. Remember, they seized when McDonald's pulled out of there. Russia seized the land and the McDonald's buildings and just started their own knockoff versions of McDonald's. They just stole the buildings. Okay, so think about like the precedents here that Russia set and the trust that of companies going back and doing business with them. So they're losing billions and billions of dollars because none of these corporations want to do business with Russia anymore. So they've basically gone economically wise back 50 years, back to before the West. They've basically isolated themselves from the world. Yeah. So the question here is, how will this war end? When will it end? And will other countries arm them? Speaking of that, check this out. 2 Americans arrested in alleged scheme to supply Russia with aviation equipment. Right here from the US, Russian sympathizers. Here's what happened. 2 Americans were arrested Thursday in relation to an alleged scheme to supply Russia with aviation equipment in violation of U.S. export laws amid the war of Ukraine, according to the DOJ. The DOJ alleged in a release that 2 men from Kansas, 59-year-old Cyril Gregory Byanovsky, let me know in the comments if that's a Russian name there, and 55-year-old Douglas Robertson have conspired to shirk U.S. export laws since 2020 as they sent Western avionics equipment to Russian companies and offered repair services for equipment used in Russian-built aircraft through their Canris trading company. Both these men allegedly concealed and misstated where and to whom the equipment and services were being delivered, according to the DOJ. Days after Russia invaded Ukraine in February of last year, The defendants allegedly attempted to send the aviation-related equipment to Russia from the U.S. The Department of Commerce informed them they would need a license to export to Russia, and the pair allegedly shipped equipment to Russia without a license. The two men are charged with conspiracy, exporting controlled goods without a license, falsifying, and failing to file electronic export information. They face decades in prison if convicted. Yeah, another big question here is China secretly sending military supplies to Russia and we don't even know? Are they just sending supplies there and just saying, "Oh, they're they're just they're goods. They're just, baby supplies and who knows what's inside those containers? Would the US know?" So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date here. If you appreciate these videos, don't forget to hit the like button for us and make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon down below after you subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos. It's completely free. Here's some videos you can watch next. Here's some good news for millions of Americans and an update on Social Security and Medicare. Very good video there. And here's another video on Russia and a threat they just gave to us Americans. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.